Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasul al-Kareem, wa ba'd. Alhamdulillah, as of Maghrib today, it is the 27th of Muharram, 1438. So this means we have 2 days left before we find out whether this will be a 30-day month or it will be 29, in which case the month of Safar will appear. Now, when we last came together, we were in Surah Al-Fajr, the 89th surah, and we had reached the commentary on Ayah 8, and there was a lengthy note given by the Imam from different historical sources on the matter. So now, inshaAllah, we shall carry on from where we left off. Imam ibn Al-Jawzi rahimahullah in ul-Masir Fi Ilm it-Tafsir, he starts by saying, quote, and when the Exalted One says, and Thamud, those who carved into the boulder and rock, this means that the Thamud people carved their homes and hewed rock with tools. Ibn Ishaq has said that the location of this site for the carving and hewing of stones was Wadi al-Qura. When the Exalted One is mentioned, and the Pharaoh, the keeper of stakes, this was already discussed in Surah Sad, the 38th Surah, Ayah 12. He mentioned those who transgress in the land. Now those, the Alladhina, refers to Ad, Thamud, and the Pharaoh. They're committing acts of disobedience and being tyrannical against the prophets of Allah, the Exalted. And they increased corruption therein in the land. Therein refers to the lands on which they had dominion, and the corruption refers to murder and disobedience. And so your Lord poured out upon them a stern punishment, because, as Ibn Qutaybah says, the punishment, it was a precautionary tale to give to other people that will come later. As Zajjaj has said, the word salt is used because salt means to use the whip or riding crop. And the punishment that Allah the Exalted has dealt out on them is a punishment that is also to show others not to do that same thing. And indeed, your Lord is watching all things, and He sees, because He sees whoever rejects faith in the hereafter and the punishment. And we've described some of this in Surah An-Naba, the 78th Surah, Ayah 21, where the root of the word mirsada is used. Now, as far as the human being, when he's tested by his Lord and He ennobles him, favors him, he says, "Oh, my Lord has favored me." The exact individual mentioned in these ayat, or in this particular ayah, is Utbah ibn Rabi'ah and Abu Hudhayfa ibn Al-Mughira, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas. Also, Ubay ibn Khalaf, as said by Ibn As-Sa'ib, and Umayyah ibn Khalaf, as said by Muqatil. But this also covers the fact that it's any unbeliever who doesn't believe in the resurrection. as the Zajjaj has said. So He, Allah, tests these people by testing them with wealth and enrichment and ease. And then when He, Allah, honors such a one with فَأَكْرَمَهُ, He honors him with wealth, and He favors him with the other amenities in life. Then He says, well, my Lord has honored me. Thinking that what he's been given from the earthly life is on account of how great he is in stature. But when he's tested by his circumstances being straightened, and when he is tested with difficulty, then he says, well, my Lord hates me and He's humiliated me with this. So you should know that the one who does not believe in the resurrection, then to him being honored in this earthly life is by extensive wealth. And humiliation to him is having little wealth. By no means, meaning the matter is not according to what that individual sees and what he believes. Because honor does not come in access to excessive wealth, nor is one humiliated if he's poor. So it's not the case that if someone has massive wealth that they're favored by Allah. And that if someone has little wealth that they're not favored by Allah. Rather, someone should praise Allah in all conditions. In poorness and in wealth. Then Allah says about the unbelievers, indeed you do not honor the orphan. So they show little respect to the orphan. They don't honor them. They don't give them their right of the inheritance because they steal from the inheritance wealth. This was a common custom in the age of ignorance, in which people would prevent women and children from inheriting. And they did not hasten the feeding of the needy. And they did not hope that by commanding with the feeding of the needy, they did not hope for the reward of the hereafter. And they ate of the wealth of the people incessantly. And they loved wealth and gathering it together to the exclusion of anything else. And they loved it so much to the point that they never wanted to spend it. But by no means, when the earth is destroyed. Now the expression dakka means time after time, repeatedly, when it's destroyed to where it's leveled down to its lowest base. And when your Lord comes, or when your Lord has come, we've already mentioned this discussion in Surah Al-Baqarah, the second surah, ayah 210. One can refer back to that for further details. And when the angels come in rows, meaning when the angels come from every sky, row in row, of one accord, Ad-Duha has said there shall be 7 rows of the multitude of angels that come. And when they bring the great fire forward. Now, there is a hadith related by Imam Muslim that was mentioned by Ibn Mas'ud, who said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the great fire shall be brought, and it shall have 70,000 chains around it. With every single one of these chains, there shall be 70,000 angels dragging it. Muqatil said, the great fire will be brought and sat down on the left side of the throne of Allah the Exalted. So on that day, meaning on the day the great fire is brought, the human being will remember, the unbeliever will take heed, and he will repent for what he did. Now the specific individual made reference to, Muqatil says it's Umayyah ibn Khalif. But on that day, what good will repentance do in the hereafter? It won't. Because the time has been tightened. And he will say, I wish I'd sent forward some good in my life, meaning some righteous deeds in the earthly life, so that they might have some good in the hereafter, the same hereafter in which there shall be no death. But on that day, he shall be punished in a way which no one has been punished before. Meaning, the punishment is coming that is unimaginable. This makes it very clear that the punishment that is coming, there are precursors in the earthly life, but its greatest is coming in the hereafter. Then Allah says to the believer, soul that is contented. Now the soul that is contented in this ayah, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutama'innah. The soul that is contented refers to 5 people in specifics. The first one that's referred to as a contented soul is Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib radiyallahu anhu. His soul was content when he was martyred on the day of the Battle of Uhud, as said by Abu Hurairah and Burayda al-Aslami. The second is Uthman ibn Affan when he was at the well in Al-Madinah. This was discussed by Ad-Duha. The third is Khubayb ibn Adi when he was crucified by the people of Mecca. This person being Khubayb ibn Adi was mentioned by Muqatil. The fourth is that it is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, as narrated by Al-Mawardi. While the fifth is that it is all believers, any and all believers, as said by Ikrimah. So the contented soul means that it is a believing soul, it is contented with Iman, and it is pleased with that which Allah has decreed, and certain of that which Allah has promised. And this was mentioned by Ibn Abbas, Az-Zajjaj, and Mujahid radiyallahu anhu. Now, there's a dispute regarding when Allah will say this expression, contented soul, O contented soul. When shall this be said? The vast majority of scholars hold that this expression shall be said at the time of the soul leaving from this earthly life. The second position is that it shall be at the resurrection day. It will be said to the soul, return back to your companion, to your body, and Allah will command the souls to return to the bodies. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas, Ata, Ibn Abi Rabah, Ikrimah, Ibn Abi Jahl, and Ad-Duha. As for the statement, Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyah, return to your Lord in a state of pleasure, there are four things that this refers to. Return to your Lord in a state of pleasure. The first is the body that the soul used to inhabit. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas, Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, and Ad-Duha. The second, return to your Lord in a state of pleasure, is after death in this earthly life. This was mentioned by Abu Salih. The third is that return to your Lord in a state of pleasure means return to the reward of your Lord. Return to the reward of your Lord. This was mentioned by Al-Hasan al-Basri. The fourth is return to your Lord in a state of pleasure, means return to Allah, the Exalted, by leaving the earthly life. This was mentioned by Al-Mawardi. As for the expression, enter into my presence, my slaves, meaning with the rest of the chosen slaves, as mentioned by Abu Salih. So at the time of death, is as if Allah will be saying, return to your Lord. But on the day of resurrection, He, Allah, will be saying, enter into my presence, along with my other slaves. So go back to your Lord, meaning where you left from, and enter into my presence, meaning the presence of Allah, and then enter into His paradise. We then come to Surah Al-Balad, the 90th surah. It is a Meccan surah by consensus. Allah the Exalted, He has said, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La uqasimu bihadha al-balad wa anta hillum bihadha al-balad wa walidin wa ma walad. لقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد أيحسب أن لن يقدر عليه أحد يقول أهلكت مالا لبدا أيحسب أن لم يره أحد ألم نجعل له عينين ولسانا وشفتين وهديناه النجدين فلاقتحم العقبة وما أدراك ما العقبة فك رقبة أو إطعام في يوم ذي مسغبة يتيم ذا مقربة أو مسكينا ذا متربة ثم كان من الذين آمنوا وتواصوا بالصبر وتواصوا بالمرحمة أولئك أصحاب الميمنة والذين كفروا بآياتنا هم أصحاب المشأمة عليهم نار مؤصدة. In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, I swear by this land, and you are allowed free movement within this land. And I swear by the Father and the Child. We have created the human being in a state of difficulty. Does he believe that no one has any power over him? And he says, oh, I have destroyed much wealth and things in the process. Does he reckon that no one saw him when he was doing such? Did we not make for him 2 eyes, a tongue, and 2 lips? Did we not guide him to the 2 pathways so that he might traverse the aqaba, the high elevation? And what will cause you to know what is the high elevation? Freeing slaves. feeding someone in dire hunger, the orphan of the near relative, the needy who is in dire need of help. Then, from among those who believe and enjoin with patience and with mercy among themselves, they are the people of the right hand. As for those who reject faith in our signs, they are the people of loss and destruction. Upon them shall be a fire that is abiding. Surah Al-Balad, the 90th surah, ayat 1 to 20. When the Exalted One says, I swear, as the Judge has said, this is an oath that is being taken. And la in Arabic, la uqasimu, normally in most instances is a negative form, but here sometimes la can be used as an indicator of intensification to emphasize the affirmative of something. Like his saying, لِأَلَّا يَعْلَمَ أَهْلُ الْكِتَابِ, so that the people of the book might definitely know. Surah Al-Hadid, the 57th surah, ayah 29. Now, we've already mentioned the great bulk of some of these points in Surah Al-Qiyamah, the 75th surah. But when the Exalted One says, and you have right in this land, meaning this land refers to Mecca, and it's permitted to you, it was allowed to happen to you what was done in this land from the trials and difficulty. Allah allowed this to occur so that you might be tested, as said by Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, and others. As the Judge has said, the same thing was mentioned when Allah promised His Prophet that he would come back to Mecca by his hands, and that he would come to it in a state, because when Allah said, وَأَنْتَ حِلٌّ بِهَذَا الْبَلَدِ, and you are hil. Now hil in this sense means to be free or unsequestered, but it also means to not be in a state of ihram. Therefore, Allah is prophesying that he would come back to Mecca and conquer it, but he would not be in a state of ihram at the time that he came in. Furthermore, you shall be in this land when you return, without being in a state of ihram when you come in. This occurred on the day of conquest, as was mentioned as well by Al-Hasan al-Basri and Ata ibn Abi Rabah. The idol worshippers allowed you to be expelled and came forward and allowed this to happen, and those of you to be killed that were killed. And they also forbade the killing of the game, as said by Tha'labi. Close quote. Now what this is then talking about is, the Imam is saying that this expression, and you are hil in this balad, you shall be coming into this balad not in a state of ihram but in hal, is that this second ayah is a prophecy. And this is a Meccan ayah. So the Prophet, the Meccan surah. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is a prophecy that وَأَنْتَ حِلٌّ بِهَذَا الْبَلَدِ, because you are or you will be like this. As the Judge, Ata ibn Abi Rabah, and Al-Hasan al-Basri all understand that this unique positioning of the ayah means that it's a prophecy. Because when the Prophet ﷺ came back to Mecca, he was wearing his helmet with his amama wrapped around it, and his clothing, he was not in a state of ihram. And this is something that had only been allowed for him, just like his entrance into Mecca with arms was only allowed to him for a certain period of time. And he said, after this shall never be allowed again. So this prophecy, now we're in the aftermath of it. So we can sit back in 2020 vision and look and say, oh, subhanAllah, it was fulfilled. But this is something that was said for a definite fact, and it was inconceivable by people in that time. How could someone come in with weapons? Or how could someone come in and not be in ihram? Everyone who was anyone at that time, idol worshiper or otherwise, came into that sanctuary in a state of ihram. The Imam goes on to say, and I swear by the father and the child. This refers to Nabiyuna Adam alayhi salam and all the children that come from him. This was said by Al-Hasan al-Basri, Mujahid, Ad-Duha, and Qatada. It also refers to the children of Nabiyuna Ibrahim alayhi salam and his progeny, and their progeny, as said by Abu Imran al-Jawni. But it can also generally be applied to every father and son, as said by Az-Zajjaj. We have created the human being. So the human being here is referring to, at one point, the whole human race, as said by Ibn Abbas. We created the human being. But the specific person this was making reference to was Abu Ashdain al-Jumhi. Now this has partially been mentioned in Surah Al-Mudaththir, the 74th Surah, Ayah 29, and Surah Al-Infitar, Ayah 5, as was said by Hasan al-Basri, and our commentary mentioned this. It's also said to refer to Al-Harith ibn Amir ibn Nawfal. So he committed a sin, and then the Prophet ﷺ commanded him to give an expiation on account of what sin he had done. And he said, I have done many expiations and spent much since the time I entered into the deen of Muhammad. I said by Muqatim. And also, it refers to Nabiyuna Adam alayhi salam by himself and whatever shall come from him, as said by Ibn Zayd, along with Al-Walid ibn Al-Mughira, as said by Al-Tha'labi. So the human being, Allah says, we have created the human being in difficulty to go from place to place. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas, as well as Al-Hasan al-Basri, Mujahid, Sa'id ibn Jubayr, Abu Ubaidah. So he was created to be in difficulty. Al-Hasan al-Basri said it means that he was created in difficulty, but to give thanks in times of ease and to be patient in times of difficulty. Because any one of these is always present. One is either in a state of ease or a state of difficulty. So one who suffers difficulties and tribulations in the time of these things suffers indeed. But one who does not go through any trials at all in the earthly life, then he is certain to have tribulations in the hereafter. Ibn Qutaybah has said, so when the difficulties and tribulation and hardship that overcome, one may have difficulties in this earthly life and the hereafter based upon what they have done. So they were created. Now, kebed also means, in this instant, kebed means one who is kabid. One who is kabid walks on two legs. So here, Allah is saying that وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ, that the human being was created to walk on two legs. All the rest of the animals that do not have this are not. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas, Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, Ad-Dahhak, Atiyah, Al-Farra. So the meaning of kabad in this sense is to be in difficulty, but also to stand up straight and to be straight backed. Now, it has also been said by Ibn Zayd that it means to come down from the sky, because Nabiyuna Adam alayhi salam came down to here from the paradise, and he came through the sky. As human beings are not from here, they came from above. Does the human being think that no one has power over him? Meaning, does he believe that Allah does not have power over him to resurrect him and to bring him to trial? Then the human being says, well, I've gotten rid of much wealth indeed. Meaning that he's disposed of much wealth. He has done much indeed. Now, further to this, the destruction of the wealth, I have destroyed much wealth indeed, refers to the fact of their striving against the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to destroy him, as said by Ibn Sa'ib. While others have done expiation in the cause of Allah, and expiations, they've spent much wealth. And this means that even those who feigned Islam, who pretended to be Muslims, lamented on the fact that they spent money for the sake of Islam. Does he think that no one sees him, meaning that Allah does not see him? Does he think that Allah doesn't see his spending and doesn't reckon it? Have we not made for him 2 eyes? Meaning, did we not give him 2 eyes to give evidence to him that Allah is able to resurrect him? Did we not give him a tongue and 2 lips? The same commentary applies. And did we not guide him to the 2 pathways? The path of goodness and the path of evil. As said by Ali, Al-Hasan al-Basri, and Al-Farra. Ibn Qutaybah said as well, this refers to the pathways of righteousness and evil. Because, as Zajjaj mentioned, the Najdain means 2 clear paths. Because just by itself, Najd means an elevated portion of the land. So, did we not cause the path of righteousness and evil to be known by raising them up and showing them clearly to you? The path of guidance and evil, guidance and astrayness, is said by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. Mujahid has said, this also refers to the path of eternal judgment and the path of eternal salvation. So have you not seen these 2 paths so that you might drink from one of them? As said by Ibn Abbas and Sa'id ibn Musayyib and Ad-Duha and Qatada. So that you might traverse the lofty elevation. The lofty elevation. So that you might traverse the lofty elevation. So again, the expression la here can refer to an affirmative in certain instances. Like فَلَا صَدَّقَ وَلَا صَلَّى, Surah Al-Qiyamah, the 75th Surah, Ayah 31. And it can also be used as a stress. So he was neither trustworthy and truthful, and nor did he pray. وَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ, and there shall be neither fear for them, nor shall they grieve. Surah Al-Baqarah, the 2nd Surah, Ayah 62. So do you not see the elevation that is coming? And what shall cause you to know what is that elevation? Freeing a slave, feeding the one in dire hunger. Then he says, those who believe. So Allah explains what is the aqaba by giving these 3 things. So do you not see what is the case? Do you not want to see what is the raised elevation? So Allah is asking this question to entice the people so that they might want the answer and take it. So that someone might spend his wealth in freeing someone from slavery, feeding the poor, so that they might traverse this great elevation. Part of this was already discussed as well in Surah Sad, the 38th Surah, Ayah 59. Now, so does someone not want to do this so that they might have a lofty reward? Now, the aqaba, al-aqaba, the word used, there are 7 things that this refers to. The first of the 7 is that al-aqaba is a mountain in the great fire. This was mentioned by Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu. The next is that Aqaba is a raised elevation under the bridge that one walks over. The second point was mentioned by Al-Hasan al-Basri. Number 3 is Al-Aqaba is one of the 70 levels in the Great Fire, as said by Ka'ab. Ka'ab ibn al-Ahbar. Number 4 is that Al-Aqaba is the pathway, the bridge that goes over the Great Fire. This was said by Mujahid and Ad-Duha. Number 5 is that it is a fire under the bridge that goes over the fire. This was said by Qatada. Number 6 is it is the pathway that makes clear the way of salvation. It is the pathway that makes clear the way of salvation. This was mentioned by Ibn Zayd. And the 7th point is that the mentioning of Al-Aqaba here is an example given by Allah so that one will strive against his soul and his lower base desires. As well as the shaitan. As well as the shaitan in order to carry out righteous deeds. So Allah compared someone doing this to scaling al-aqaba by saying that you will not bear any difficulty on yourself by freeing a slave, feeding the needy, and so forth. This was mentioned by Ali ibn Ahmed al-Naysaburi. So when the Exalted One says, and what will cause you to know what is al-aqaba? Sufyan ibn Uyayna radiallahu anhu, he says, all of what's in it. So what will cause you to know all of what's in it? What will cause you to know what you've been informed of? So the scholars of commentary all say, so this statement Allah is making, so what will cause you to know what is al-aqaba? And then he clarifies it. Now the expression وَمَا أَدَرَاكَ means that what will cause you to know that an answer is going to be given after. But the expression وَمَا يُدَرِيكَ, what will make you know, no explanations given after that expression is mentioned. Close quote. What you have is two variations of an expression. What will cause you to know, what will make you know. وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ, what will make you know, that information is only used, or that expression is only used when Allah is talking about the Day of Judgment. And that's one of the reasons why some scholars say that the Prophet ﷺ did not know the exactitude of the hour, because Allah says, وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ, what will make you know, because otherwise Allah would have said, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ. Further to this, he then gives al-aqaba, the elevation. Now he comes to the rest of the commentary. He says, quote, and so the meaning of fakku raqaba, lifting a neck or freeing a neck, means freeing someone from the prisonership of slavery. And anything that binds one or enslaves one to something, and someone frees someone from it, that is fiqh. That is freeing. Close quote. Now I want you to take a look at something, because I've said this before, and we covered all the other ayats before on this topic. Here is the last of the ayat where Allah mentions freeing slaves. Now here, in this ayah, when he says, what will cause you to know what is the elevation? So Allah causes this as a means of elevation, gaining elevation. Right? Fakku raqabah, freeing a slave. Now to do fak of something is not just to free the person, but to free up the circumstances. So here Allah is talking about even destroying the institutions that lead to slavery. Destroying the institutions, because riqqa in Arabic is our word for slavery. Riqqa. And so fakku raqaba, freeing a neck, to free slavery, the institution. So here, it doesn't refer to a Muslim or a kafir. It just refers to the institution. to do away with an institution, to strive against. So when the revelation came down, if you look at anywhere where Islam came down at, permanent slavery was lifted. Whether it was prostitution, sex slavery, whether it was debt slavery, the only type of slavery that remains is temporary. And the temporary slavery is war slavery. So someone's taken as a prisoner of war for a period of time. While they're a prisoner, they are a slave. Because they can't go where they want to. They may be secured. They may be locked up somewhere, whatever else. But they don't stay in that state forever. But that is a type of slavery. They are a POW. They are a prisoner of war. But it is not allowed to create a system, a structure that will be permanental. Right? So when it says fakku raqaba, freeing that, it's fakaka is to not only free that one, but the conditions and things around it. Right? And that's extremely important. Because if you look at, and I've been busy doing this, but it's a project that will probably be ready in maybe 2 years. But I wanted to do a study on the history of manumission among Muslims and Western civilization. The manumission meaning the freeing of slaves. Because I think this comparison is useful and beneficial, because the process of manumission and freeing slaves, what does this mean when slaves are freed? What happens when someone who's been a slave their entire lifetime is given freedom? Do you just free them? Because we can see what happened in the United States after the transatlantic slave trade. After the transatlantic slave trade, slavery was then outlawed internationally. Why? Because it was too expensive. Because it was expensive. Not because we're sorry and this is terrible, we should never have done this. It's expensive. The importation and transportation. Then you had the introduction of a system inside of the United States, because it's a peculiar form of slavery. This peculiar form where it was race-based, that you deserve to be a slave because of your complexion. It was peculiar. And then the Civil War happened. But both sides had lack of troops because the war was so destructive and turned families against families. So what happened? They used these slaves with a promise of freedom. But then what happened? The 13th, 14th, 15th, and some say the 16th Amendment did not free slaves. It created a system in which, and this is now enshrined in the Constitution of the United States, that slaves can no longer be internationally traded in the United States. No slavery exists except in the case of those who have been lawfully convicted of a crime. Now that you know that information, and the Emancipation Proclamation and these other foolish things, now that you know this information, you can then go down and do some stats if you need to, and look at the vast majority of the prison population of the United States. You can start putting your pieces together. You can pick up Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, which talks about how although segregation has ended in one level, it didn't in another. And although international slavery was ended, domestic slavery has continued in the same conditions that allowed that. Even the people that were supposed to be freed weren't given any money or anything to set their lives up with. They were just told, okay, now go. So how would they set their lives up? How would they start their lives? How would they build up? And then people in the United States say, well, what's wrong with these people? Why can't they just pull themselves up by the bootstraps because everyone else did this? Well, here's the thing. The Mexicans and the Arabs and all these groups that came in with money, and they came in with their language, and they had something in their pocket. This group of people was told, okay, that's it now, nothing in their pocket. And every time they built something up, it was destroyed. So you have what's known as Black Wall Street. You have Rosewood. You can do the research on all these movements. And every time they became prosperous and affluent and wealthy, blue eyes, hazel eyes, green eyes looked enviously and sought to destroy it. That is the legacy of manumission, if we could call it as such, in the United States. And I think it would be useful to do a comparison between manumission in Western civilization, how they view slavery, and manumission and slavery among Muslims. Because here we have the Quran where 4 times in the speech of Allah, Allah mentions here, and 3 other times which you've already been through, about freeing slaves. So I'll leave you with this question before we return to the text. Is there anything, because you seem like the researching type, is there anything in the Vedas that mentions anything about freeing of slaves and breaking down the permanent institutions of slavery? Is there anything in the Jewish books about stopping permanent slavery and freeing institutions? Is there anything in Christianity about this? I mean, you could probably do a search on Bible freeing slaves. I think you'll come back with 0 results. But you can only find one text out of every other text that people say rules their societies. You can only find one text in which the freeing of slaves and the institution of permanent slavery is attacked. And that is the speech of Allah, the Quran. It's been looking us in the eye all this time when people memorize Juz Amma. And they say, how come there's no ayat in the Quran talking about, freeing slaves? Well, here's one right here. There's 3 others waiting for you. But you have to keep in mind, people have been groomed. And I mean that in the strongest sense of the word, groomed. They have been groomed. And their brains haven't been washed, they've been polluted. It's not brainwashing, it's brain sullying. Because their brains have been sullied because they've been told, oh no, slavery is just totally allowed in Islam, and Islam actually, just says that this is the way it is. No. Things have to be regulated and dealt with and broken down. And everywhere that Muslims went, some countries they came to, they encountered people marrying their own brothers and sisters, and this took years to run this out. When the Muslims came to Iran, they found the royal family intermarrying, where a brother would marry a sister that was the daughter from a father's previous marriage. All right, so they had a different mother. And to them, that was perfectly allowable. Umar ibn al-Khattab said, no, the revealed law protects the lineage, and we are of no concern about what your religious beliefs are. You will not do this because you poison your own lineage. The same thing in Egypt. The same thing in the Horn of Africa. This ancestral intermarriage, no. You cannot do these things. Right? So now it would take time to run out these things. The same thing with permanent slavery. Islam comes into some place, it had to slowly wipe some of these things out. Especially in places where people had ideas. You think when Islam came to the Chechens, those people who, these Turkic peoples, believed that the only good Slav was a dead Slav or a slave. That's where the origin of the English word slave comes from, is the word Slav. I mean, if you really want to understand some serious slavery besides the transatlantic slave trade, go to your local library, do some digging about the Slavic slave trade. And that will really make you understand why the Russians fought so hard against the Germans, and why the Germans and the Russians don't see eye to eye. This is more than just a World War II problem. This is about a 500 to 600 to 700-year-old problem between the Slavs, represented mostly by the Russians, and the Teutons, represented mostly by the Germans. It's an old issue. But normally when we think of slavery, we think of what you've been told in the media to believe or think. But what I'm saying is to look beyond that. Permanent slavery, whether you like them because they're your color or you don't like them because they're not. Permanental slavery is a blotch on humanity, whether it's sex slavery or whatever else. And the revealed law has things in it that deal with these things. The Imam goes on to say, quote, and when he says about the feeding of those who are in dire hunger, the orphan that is a near relative, that someone also has someone poor and needy in severe poverty, metaraba, as if they're eating dirt or laying in dirt because of the level of poverty. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh says, the one in this situation, it is as if he's lying in dirt because nothing remains of him. But then he says that near relatives and the relations of near relatives only benefit when one has Iman. As when Allah says, then those who believe, Thumma Allahu Shaheed, just as Allah says, and so Allah is the witness. Surah Yunus, the 10th Surah, ayah 46. And they enjoin with patience in carrying out the obligations of Allah and His commands. And they enjoin with mercy among themselves. We've already mentioned the companions of the right hand and those who are lost in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, the 56th Surah, ayat 7 to 8. So, Muqatil has said, they enjoin with righteousness. So, they enjoin with righteousness, patience, and mercy. And these are doors. The door of patience, the door of mercy, and joining between one another. Then, as the Zajjaj has said, the punishment shall come to them that reject faith all at once, and they shall be overwhelmed. And that punishment will come to them in many different levels. This is partially mentioned in Surah Al-Humazah, ayah 8. The Exalted One then brings us to Surah Al-Shams. This is a Meccan surah by consensus. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wash-shamsi wa duhaha. وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها. By the sun and its brightness, and by the moon when it follows on, and by the day when it spreads its illumination, and the night when it covers it, by the sky and what He built it as, by the earth and what He spread it out to be, by the soul and what He proportioned it to be, and the soul, the rebellious and the righteous. The one who has purified the soul is successful. But the one who is left empty is lost. Thamud denied in its transgression, and there came upon it that which was meant for the wretched. Their messenger said to them, "This is the she-camel of Allah. Give it space so that it might drink." Yet they denied him. Then they hamstrung the she-camel, and the destruction of their Lord came upon them on account of their sin, and it was spread out all around. And Allah did not fear the outcome of that. Surah Shams, the 91st Surah, Ayat 1 to 15. So when the Exalted One is said, "And by the sun and its light that shines forward," its light is the essence, the light that's coming from it, as said by Mujahid and Zajjaj. And when it yellows as well after it is risen, the daw or the duha, that light, duha is when the sun becomes yellow after its redness has burned off. Close quote. Now, this is an important point because it's also an important point to tell if someone wants to do Salatul Duha. Okay, because Duha in Arabic means when the redness of the sun has burned off and it becomes yellow. So, when the sun rises, it's going to be blood red or orangish red. When that redness burns off and it becomes yellow, now you're eligible to pray Salatul Duha, this optional prayer. Right? It can be up to 8 rakahs, as little as 2. Right? Now, someone may ask, but wait a minute. What's the difference between Ishraq and Duha? Some scholars make a difference in which they say Ishraq is if you just pray these 2, but Ishraq and Duha is if you pray all 8. Right? Now, it is permitted to pray it. It's noble to pray it. However, it's more of a habit of the first 3 generations because the Prophet ﷺ only prayed it once. When he came to the house of Ayman, one of the female companions from his household, والسلام, when he came to her house, والسلام, he prayed 8 rakahs and then he headed out. Now, Duha's time lasts from the yellowing of the sun after sunrise all the way up until the zenith. That's the Duha time. After that, then Duha is not eligible unless someone prayed it as a qada and said, well, I'm making it up, but it's not eligible after that point to be prayed because you've lost its time. Now, there is a hadith in the Sunan of Imam Tirmidhi where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, and it applies to this: whoever prayed 2 rak'ah after sunrise, whoever after Fajr, no, the hadith runs, this narration runs, whoever after Fajr waited until the sun rose, then he prayed 2 rak'ah thereafter, shall have the reward of 1 hajj and 1 umrah. Tammatan, tammatan, tamma, completely, completely, completely. Now we have to give a disclaimer. If someone does Ishraq or they do Salatul Duha in this fashion, this does not mean that you are eligible for the title Al-Hajj now and that you've done Hajj and Umrah and that the obligation's lifted from you. As crazy as it sounds to say, we have to make a disclaimer because things have been said. That's not what that means. It says that you have the reward of doing it. So you're still due to make your Hajj and your Umrah. It's not been lifted. You can't say, I do it every morning, I'm on Hajj and Umrah. That's not what that's to do with. It's to do with the reward that you'll receive. All right, so this is known as Salatul Duha. Right, we know the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in hadith in Al-Bukhari, he only prayed it once. All right, but Aisha radiallahu anha, Aisha, she used to mention, because there are different salawat where you reap maximum reward. Aisha said, because I used to sleep through the night, I would pray Salatul Duha regularly. What that meant is she couldn't get up to pray Tahajjud. So because she couldn't do Tahajjud, she would do Salatul Duha as a regular. That means the understanding of the early generations is that Duha's reward and place is on par with that of Tahajjud or Qiyamul Layl. Because the fact that Aisha radiallahu anha wa alayha salam said, I used to pray this because at night I would sleep through. So she would sleep in the night. So in the daytime she'd make duha. But in the night she slept. So for those who want to pray, they keep not being able to get up for tahajjud and they really want to do some extra worship, you can pray Salatul Duha. Right? Just be mindful of the time. It can be anywhere between 2 and 8 rak'at. The Imam goes on to say, quote, a second thing that the duha refers to is all of the daytime, as said by Qatada bin Qutayba. It also refers to the heat of the day, as said by As-Sudai and Muqatil. And by the moon, when it follows it, meaning it follows on from the sun, it follows a similar track, as said by Ibn Abbas. Now, the moon following the sun in a similar track means that when you're in the first night of a month, you see the moon when the sun has gone down. So the moon is following the sun. It's following along a similar track because the sun has gone down and the moon has come up at the beginning of a new month. This was said by Qatada. It also refers to the fact that on the 15th day of the month, when the sun has set, the moon rises large as a full disk. This was mentioned by Al-Mawardi. It also refers to the fact that in the first half of the month, when the sun sets, the moon follows it in terms of light. And sometimes they're present in the sky around the same time. This was mentioned by Ali ibn Ahmed al-Naysaburi. So the moon follows the sun on a similar track. This was mentioned by Mujahid and others. At the 13th, 14th, 15th, when the 13th, 14th, 15th days of the month, the moon is a complete disk similar to the sun in illumination. And by the day, when it spreads its illumination, because the sun is causing the illumination to spread, as said by Mujahid, and by the day, which is made clear by the sun, because as the daylight spreads, the sun appears not long after. And the darkness comes only once the sun has finished its day. by the night when it covers it, meaning when the night covers the sun that is set, and then darkness covers the horizon. And by the sky, the one that built it. And the earth, what has spread it out. And the soul, the rebellious and the righteous, what caused it to be spread out. Now the expression وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا, meaning to spread, it means to spread left, right, and in every direction. Ibn Qutaybah said the same, to say that when something is made a wide expanse, and when the Exalted One said, and by the soul, by a soul, and what spreads it out, a soul here is specifically referring to Nabiyyuna Adam alayhi salam, as said by Al-Hasan al-Basri, referring to Nabiyyuna Adam alayhi salam, but it also refers to any and all souls, as discussed by Qatada. And he spreads out the soul. He spreads out the souls and decides where they shall be distributed. And both the righteous, he puts in the souls, both the rebellious and the righteous, who they are. Sa'id ibn Jubayr radiallahu anhu said, so he has those marked that are rebellious and those who are righteous. So those who have righteousness he attaches his success to, but the destruction to those who are rebellious. The one that's purified the soul is indeed successful. Meaning, the one is successful that has a purified soul. And his soul has been purified by Allah the Exalted. As mentioned by Ibn Abbas, Muqatil, Al-Farra, and Al-Zajjaj. But also one purifies their soul, one purifies his soul by obedience to Allah and doing righteous deeds after the fact. As mentioned by Qatada, Ibn Qutaybah, and others. He rectifies and purifies it from sins that may come thereafter. And whoever has left it desolate is destroyed. So Allah the Exalted knows who are wretched, wicked. He knows what is in the heart. And those are destroyed. Now their condition is hidden. Their kufr and their other things. And what they really do believe, it's hidden and it's not manifested. But they also, those who reject faith, will not manifest righteousness and righteous deeds. Now, if we should say that human beings have an action, whoever leaves it desolate, meaning with rebellious sin, then the rebellious sin is the rebellious sin that comes about because one exalts himself in what he has of his property and his wealth. Just as much as Ibn Qutaybah has said, he destroys his own soul with rebellion and disobedience. And he falls into perversions that corrupt the self. Well-known perversions that cause the self to exalt itself and elevate itself. With showing off and other such things, falling into personal glorification. Seeing oneself as better than others. And as Zajjaj has mentioned, so this makes one of little goodness, and destruction of the soul is permanent. Thamud denied in their transgression. They denied their messenger by transgressing. So they denied, they rejected, they belied And that's the root of where this word is coming from. So they brought upon themselves the punishment. And their wickedness came to them when they hamstrung the camel. And their messenger had said to them, Nabiyuna Salih alayhi salam, this is the she-camel of Allah, warning them. This, beware, this is the she-camel of Allah. Let it drink. Scholars of commentary say, its suqiyaha was its drinking from the water. So don't come near it on a certain day where it's designated to drink, and on other days you're designated to drink and take from the well. But they denied the warning given of the punishment if they hamstrung it, and they hamstrung the camel, decapitated it, and were ultimately punished. Now this is mentioned in Surah Al-Araf, the 7th Surah, 77. And the punishment of their Lord came upon them all around. And then that punishment was all-encompassing to them, as said by As-Sudai and Yahya ibn Salam. And the destruction destroyed the least and the greatest of them. And the earth, the land where they inhabited, was left desolate, as mentioned by Muqatil. Some of them even dug their own graves and laid down in them, knowing the destruction was coming. Their houses were shaken from their foundations, and they fell into the very graves that they dug for themselves. And He, Allah, did not fear the outcome. Meaning that He, Allah, does not fear any outcome from those that He may destroy and what He does. For no one influences Allah's judgment or His decisions, as said by Ibn Abbas and Al-Hasan al-Basri. So He did not fear the judgment that comes about and the penalty that He brings to pass and that which He wills. This is His decision to make and His will. Also, Nabiyuna Salih alayhi salam did not fear the outcome that was to come upon them. Close quote. This is one of the clear ayat. وَلَا يَخَافُ عُقْبَاهَا. He, Allah, He's not influenced by other people's judgments. Human beings can be influenced by a judgment. I see a young 12-year-old Arab girl that's been raped repeatedly by American soldiers with blonde hair, blue eyes. And now I'm brought into Iraq to act as a judge over that case. I'm going to have a very, very difficult time rendering a fair judgment, rendering a sound judgment, and also not allowing my feelings to enter into that trial. Particularly if that young 12-year-old girl looks like maybe a cousin of mine or a niece or someone in my family. People, with the exception of some that Allah has blessed with supreme intellect, people are influenced by external factors and people are influenced by internal factors. Certain people, when they see someone walking towards them of a certain race, are more fearful than if they see someone else. And it's not just whites versus dark. It could be other people. People have certain understandings. Some of these are biases. Some of them are over time. Some of them are, if you gather Egyptians in a room, stereotypically, and you mention Moroccans, you have a basic understanding of what they're going to say because of certain ingrown biases. The Moroccans is the same thing. You ask the Algerians about other Arabs, the same thing. People will say certain things because they're either biases or experiences that they've had. And those experiences could influence the judgment. How many times as a child wanted to do something and the father said no and the mother said, let me speak to your father. Because of the possibility of greasing the skids, maybe influencing the judgment, moving it, even if it was futile. Just the attempt is put in to try to maybe skirt the ruling, to maybe lift the two-week suspension or the 2-week restriction into the house to say no phone, no friends, no this. Maybe the 2 weeks could be 10 days instead of, so we won't count weekends. So it won't be a full 14. It will be 10 instead. People try to influence judgments by other people constantly. It could be bribery. It could be other things. If it doesn't involve corruption or other things, people seek to involve people's judgment in employment. Oh yes, so-and-so's a friend of mine. Mention me, he'll be sure to get you in. So you go into the interview, it doesn't seem like it went as well as you thought, and then you say, oh yes, by the way, Brother Ahmed said hi. Oh, did he? And then all of a sudden the paperwork gets moved because people are influenced by these judgments. Because those are internal or external factors. External factors are, we're sitting in this room and someone turns on the radiator next to me. I feel hot, so I take my shirt off because I'm sweating profusely. That's an external influence. Another external influence is someone turns all them off and it's 40 below outside, and some of that bleeds through the window. Some of the coldness from outside bleeds through the window, so I put my shirt back on. Now I'd say I'm feeling cold, which is true, but I've also been influenced by external factors. Here, Allah the Exalted is saying, and He does not fear the judgment of what's been brought about, the outcome. Because Allah knows the outcome of what will happen if these people are destroyed. He knows everything of what's going to occur. So no one can influence those decisions and say, oh, well, you shouldn't have done this, you should know. He, Allah, knows what's right, what's just, what's best. The Imam rahimahullah then says, quote, Surah Al-Lail, this is a Meccan surah by consensus. The Exalted One, he says, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, Wal-Layli idha yaghsha, Wan-Nahari idha tajalla, وما خلق الذكر والأنثى إن سعيكم لشتى فأما من أعطى واتقى وصدق بالحسنى فسنيسره لليسرى وأما من بخل واستغنى وكذب بالحسنى فسنيسره للعسرى وما يغني عنه ماله إذا تردى إن علينا للهدى وإن لنا للآخرة والأولى فأنذرتكم نارا تلظى لا يصلاها إلا الأشقى الذي كذب وتولى وسيجنبها الأتقى الذي يؤتي ماله يتزكى وما لأحد عنده من نعمة تجزى إلا ابتغاء وجه ربه الأعلى وَلَسَوْفَ يَرْضَى. In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, by the night when it spreads, by the day when it expands, and what He created of the male and the female, and how He spread you out abundantly. As for the one who He gave and he had fear, he was truthful in the goodness. For such a one, we shall make easiness for him. As for the one who was miserly and thought himself independent, and he denied of the goodness, then we shall make easy for him the hardship. And his wealth did not benefit him when he transgressed. Indeed, it is for us to give the guidance, and for us is the hereafter and this first life. I certainly warn you of a fire that blazes, and that it shall not blaze and touch anyone except for the wretched, the one who denied and turned away from the truth. But the fire shall certainly avoid the righteous, the one who his wealth was given as a means of purification. And there is no one in his sight who had a favor except that it was given. And that favor that was given, he only sought the face of his Lord the Most High in giving that favor, and so that he, Allah, might be pleased with him. Surah Al-Lail, the 92nd Surah, Ayat 1 to 21. Exalted One has said, and by the night when it spreads, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, it spreads because its darkness overcomes the day. And that darkness starts on the horizon and spreads between the sky and the earth all over. And the daytime when it expands, because it becomes clear and manifests in the darkness. And what he created of the male and the female. So what was created of the male and female? Nabiyuna Adam and Hawa alayhim as-salam, as said by Ibn As-Sa'ib. And all males and females of whatever species, as said by Al-Mawardi. They were spread out. You were spread out. He spread you out in abundance. And so were your deeds. So the different deeds that were done for the paradise and deeds done for the people of the fire. As the judge has said, so what the believer did and what the unbeliever did, there's a difference between them, a great difference. Now there is a reason why this ayah was sent down. It was triggered by two main events. The first is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. He bought Bilal from Umayyah and Ubay ibn Khalaf. From Umayyah ibn Khalaf and Ubay ibn Khalaf. And it was for the price of 1 talent and 10 pieces of gold. He then freed him. Allah sent down the ayah. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى, and the rest of the surah. Up until the point that's referring to both of them. Indeed, you were spread out in many numbers with different deeds. So that which Abu Bakr did and that which Umayyah and Ubay did were two different things. This is mentioned by Ibn Mas'ud. There was another incident that triggered this, in which there was a man that had a date palm tree, and one of its long branches stretched into the house of a poor man that had dependents. And the man, when he stood up to take from the poor man, when he stood up to take from the date palm, from some of its fruit, in the hope that it would fall down, a small child that was poor that was there also stood to take from it. The man came down from the date palm, took some of the fruit, and prepared to use it. But the owner of the date palm came took the fruit from the hands of the poor people. And the child that was chewing on some of the date palm, some of the fruit from the date palm, the wealthy man stuck his finger in the mouth of that child and took the piece of fruit that he was chewing on out. The poor man went to the Prophet ﷺ and complained about this incident. And the Prophet ﷺ said to the owner of the date palm, what would you say? Would you give me your date palm, which its branch was in the house of this man, and you could have a date palm in the paradise? The man said, indeed, I have a date palm that is more amazing than I could think of. And I will consider what you have said. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, so if you have a date palm in the paradise, does that not make you think? The owner of the date palm, when he heard this speech, he said, Messenger of Allah, you say that I have a date palm in the paradise if I allow it to be taken hold of by this man? He said, yes. So the man went, and when he met the other man, he said to him, have you not heard that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave me a date palm in the paradise? No date palm to me is more beautiful than that. The other man said, well then, what would happen if I wanted to sell you my date palm? And he said, I wouldn't want it. He said, well, what if I wanted to give you 40 date palms? He said, I wouldn't even take 40. Well, what if I gave you the equivalent of the people gathered around? And he wouldn't take it. The man then went to the Messenger of Allah ﷺ and said, the date palm has now come into my possession from the man. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, when he heard this, he went to the man that was in the house at the time, and he said, look, the date palm is now for the poor and his dependents. And there is also the date palm waiting for you in the paradise as well. Then Allah revealed the surah, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى, up until the ayah, إِنَّ سَعْيَكُمْ لَشَتَّى, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas and Ata ibn Abi Rabah. Now, as far as the one who gave and he feared Allah, the one who gave and feared Allah is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, said by the vast majority, while Ata ibn Abi Rabah said he is Abu Dahdah, because he is the one in the date palm story. But the one who gave of the surplus of his wealth is the one who gave and had taqwa of Allah, said by Ibn Abbas. The one who Allah gave truthfulness in his heart is the same one as said by Hasan al-Basri. The one who gave Allah his right upon him is the one who had piety, said by Qatada. So the one who feared Allah, who avoided miserliness, and maintained the boundaries which Allah forbade him from, as this was mentioned by Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, and Qatada. This one has husna. He bore witness. وَصَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى. He bore witness of the husna, the goodness, the grace. The grace is referring to La ilaha illallah. This is the grace. It's said by Ibn Abbas and Al-Dhahak, as well as Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl and Ibn Abbas and Hasan al-Basri in another narration. And by default, this refers to the paradise, as said by Mujahid, and the favors of Allah upon him, as said by Ata. And the promise of Allah that He will reward him, as said by Qatada and Muqatil. The prayer and the zakah and the fasting are also included within the husna, said by Zayd ibn Aslam. And we will make it easy for him to do al-yusra. Al-yusra here is the good. So such things shall be made easy for him. And the good leads to the paradise, as said by Zayd ibn Aslam. But for the one who was miserly, now this is referring directly to Umayyah ibn Khalaf and Ubay ibn Khalaf. And also to originally the owner of the date palm before he knew better. But for the one who was miserly with his spending and his goodness and the truthfulness, and did not discharge the rights of Allah, and thought himself independent or better than to look for the reward of Allah, and he didn't hope for it, and he denied the goodness, then this one has the fire. فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْعُسْرَى. The difficulty and hardship is the fire, as said by Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh, and the evil, as said by Ibn Abbas. So he shall be turned over to that which he went towards, which is the punishment of the fire. And this is on account of his gripping tightly to his wealth that won't benefit him in the hereafter. And his wealth could not benefit him when he denied the truth, when he was miserly. And what will he do when he denies the truth, when he is wading in the great fire, as said by Ibn Abbas, Qatada. So when someone dies and he's turned over in his grave, what other alternative does he have left? Nothing, says Mujahid radiallahu anh. Indeed, it is upon us to give the guidance, meaning we make clear the path of guidance from the path of astrayness. We own and we possess the hereafter in this earthly life. So both of them seek them from us. And I warn you from a great fire that has been kindled and blazes, and shall not scorch anyone except for the wretched. The wretched refers to the mushrik, who is denied, meaning denying the messenger, and turned away from Iman. The wretched one is such a one. As the judge has said, this ayah is clear. And that which is claimed by the Murji'ah group, that no one enters the fire except for a kafir, this is not true. It is not as they claim. Because this fire is described in its essence and is blazing, and the people of the fire have levels. Because if no one but a mushrik or a kafir entered the fire, then what does someone say about the ayah? وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. And He, Allah, forgives whatever is besides that of the sins for who He wills. Surah An-Nisa, the 4th Surah, 48. So what would be the point of this if no one entered the fire except for unbelievers? Close quote. Now, this brings us to a point. There was another group known as the Murji'ah, which, strangely enough, are making an appearance, although in a more corrupted form. The Murji'ah's position was, if somebody says and believes La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, no matter what, Allah will never punish them. Because their faith is complete, so Allah will never punish them, no matter what. And the only people entering the fire are the kuffar and the idol worshippers. That's it. This understanding flies in the face of everything else we know. Because the statement of the Prophet ﷺ in Imam Suyuti's collection, Shafa'ati li ahl al-kaba'ir min ummati, my intercession is for the people who commit major sins from my ummah. That means that there's something going on, something that's happening there that requires intercession. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ's intercession is only for people who've gone into fire, or who are deserving of it. So that could have only been believers, because unbelievers, Allah said in Surah Al-Mudaththir, وَلَا تَنْفَعُهُمْ شَفَاعَةُ الشَّافِعِينَ, that the shafa'ah will not benefit them at all. So we say, okay, it's not mushrikeen and unbelievers, so it must be Muslims. But for the Murji'ah, they say, no, that's impossible, because once someone said, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, they're safe from any punishment. The statement of Ahlus Sunnah, or Muslim Orthodox, no, they're safe from eternal judgment. But if someone did not repent from sins that they did after they became a believer, or as they are a believer, if they don't repent from those sins, Allah will purify them. That will either be in the next life in which it's burned off, or Allah, who knows the condition and situation of that person, may forgive that person because they were put in unique circumstances, whatever the case may be, if they were forced or what have you. But if someone says, yeah, I believe La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, and they believe it, but they're a disobedient slave, then Allah, in His will and His judgment, can choose to punish the slave based upon what He knows of the intimate knowledge. But if someone says, well, no, if someone believes in Allah, because this question often comes up, well, can't someone then just say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah and just say that they believe it and then live however they want to? Well, no, because someone saying La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah and then saying, I believe in you, O Allah, but I won't obey you. Well, wait a minute. That's clear that you don't believe, because this one says, I believe in you, but I won't obey you. Well, that's clear you don't believe La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, because inside of that is obeying Allah. Now, if someone says La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah and they say, I'll do as much as I can, as some of the companions said, I'll do as much as I can. One of the companions said, many of the things that Allah has revealed, there are many, and I don't know what to do. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, he said, believe in Allah and be upright. All of this hangs on those two things. Believe in Allah, be upright. Okay, I can do those. Or when the Bedouin, the Imam ibn Thalaba, he asked about what Islam was, the 5 pillars, and he said, I swear by Allah, I won't do more or less than these. And then the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith in Sahih Muslim, he said, if he is truthful, he'll be successful. So that's someone saying, he clearly said, I'm not doing any tahajjud. Because he said, I'm not doing more than this. No tahajjud for me. No qiyamul layl. No 13, 14, 15 fast. Muharram's out of the question. You can forget about any extra umrahs, any Ramadan umrahs. Get that out of your mind. I'm not giving any sadaqah. I'm giving you the best of what I got, bare minimum. Okay. Because if someone's a believer and they do their best with the obligations they've been given, those other things are on top of it. But if they give, I'm going to do the obligations to the best of my ability, and I swear by Allah, I won't increase or decrease. SubhanAllah. But it's understanding, because that goes back to knowing your level. Some people have to know their level. Some people, I'm going to memorize the Quran in a week. That may not be your level. They set unrealistic goals. I'm going to memorize the Quran in 2 weeks. And you barely remember what you had for breakfast yesterday. Now, are karramat, are wonders possible? Of course that's true. But you have to know your level. So you have to do 3 things when you're looking to increase in goodness. You have to, number 1, know what your level is. Number 2, set realistic goals. Okay, now, I can't do a khatam of the Quran every week. That's simply not possible. I can't read every single, okay, all right. I can't read that's too much. I work this, okay, all right. What about reading through the whole Quran every 30 days? No, that's still not feasible for me. Okay, what about every 60 days? No, I really couldn't do that. Okay, what about every year? Now that I could do. How do I go about doing that? Okay, well, maybe read maybe a page a day. Mus'haf is 604 pages. Maybe read a couple pages every day. Okay, I can do that. All right, and if you find anything you don't understand, write it down, put it on your phone, program it in your phone, or write it down in a day planner, because you may come across the question in the same surah later on, and then update it. And then at the end of the year, you can look at what you have. So the third point is you then look over what your progress was, because the only way to know how your year went and how you did is to write it down, set realistic goals, look back over it and say, oh, subhanAllah, I did all that. Yes, you did all that. And then you can set another goal, right? The Murji'ah way of doing things is to say, well, no, I believe in Allah, that's it now. Now, someone says, well, wait a minute, hold on. You can't not obey Allah and then say you believe in Allah. Now, the first time that happened, and when someone said that to them, they gave the famous statement that I'm sure everyone in this room has all heard. Iman is in my heart. Who are you to judge me? Those two sentences are the hallmark of the Murji'ah. The person may not have heard of the Murji'ah. This is, Murji'ah, I don't know what that is. Sounds like a cake recipe. But that is the theology. I said I believe, so that's good enough. I speak to Allah on my terms. It's like a business contract. I spoke to Allah, him and I came to an agreement on terms. He's the Lord of the universe and God of my life, and I said I'm his slave based and subject to terms and conditions, T's and C's. And so every now and then when I feel that those T's and C's need updating, I twist the machinery a little bit. Beef it up. Sometimes I slow it down, sometimes I speed it up. Depends on how I'm feeling. See, this is your do-it-yourself Islam. It's like, no, listen, you know what? I'm going to look into, practicing again. I'm going to try out Islam again. You don't try the Lord of Majesty who's holy above all others. You don't try a king. I'm going to try this monarchy thing and listening to an absolute monarch. You don't try a king. You don't do it. A monarch can't be tried. It's permanent. But this is the understanding of the Murji'ah. Now, that's on one end of the spectrum. On one extreme is the Murji'ah. On the other end of the spectrum, so you have one, which is irja', which is complete comfort with oneself. On the other end of the spectrum is the Khawarij, which is dread. We'll never get it right. We'll never get it right. We'll never get it right. Oh, I'm finished. Always looking for that one good deed to be that 51% good Muslim. Maybe I'll get the tickets to the paradise. Maybe I'll get the tickets. Always looking in the raffle. Has my number come up? Has my number come up? Looking, number 253, 2532. Oh, it's not here. And you're rolling the craps dice on the paradise, hoping to come up, and it won't be snake eyes. You're playing that game of craps for the paradise. That's on the other extreme. So on the basis of salvation, the Murji'ah are on another side. On the basis of salvation, the Khawarij are on another side. The truth is always in the middle. If you look at all the 72 sects, Muslim orthodoxy is always in the middle. There's always two extremes. Names and attributes of Allah, two extremes. Salvation, two extremes. Right? The deeds of man, two extremes. Reconciliation between creator and man, two extremes. Muslim orthodoxy is always in the middle. The middle is salvation is true, not true. That's no doubt about that. And one who has salvation is safe from Allah's eternal judgment. But if they are a disobedient slave and they rebel against Allah, then Allah the Exalted has every right to choose however he may so will to purify that person of what sins they've been degraded with or been degraded with. Right? But that person is safe from eternal judgment. There's no doubt about that. But if someone says they believe in Allah but they won't obey him, that's proof that they don't believe. But on the other end of it, we also don't sit in fear wondering, oh no, there's no hope. Everything I do never measures up with what Allah wants. Oh, it's finished. It's over for me. Allah's left me in a lurch. We don't do that either. It's in the middle. And we know the truth of all things by that. Now, the Imam rahimahullah, he then says, quote, and the fire shall be far from and shall not approach them from any direction. The one who has piety and fears Allah. The person referred to in particular is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anh for buying Bilal and freeing him. But it's also referring to all believers in a general sense. The one who his wealth was given as a purification. So he sought in the sight of Allah purification. He didn't give it in order to show off or to be heard of or to be heard being praised by others. He didn't do any of that so that others might shake his hand or he might be thought of as someone special. Rather, it is as Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh said, that Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, when he bought Bilal after he had been punished by the idol worshippers and they used to torture him, the idol worshippers said, what has Abu Bakr done except he's taken someone and bought Bilal? And what goods come from that? Nothing. But Allah has said, he did not do anything hoping for some reward, but rather he sought the face of his Lord Most High. So what he spent, he sought the face of his Lord Most High. What he spends, he only seeks the face of his Lord Most High. And that he also seeks that he will be pleased with him. Meaning, so that when he enters into the paradise, he'll be given his reward from the good that he did in this life. The Exalted One then brings us to Surah Ad-Duha. Close quote. Now, we've completed this surah. Now, Surah Ad-Duha, because we are doing the tafsir of the Quran, but it is also a mighty khatam. As a habit and custom of khatam that we know from the first few generations is from Surah Ad-Duha to Surah An-Nas. After we recite each surah, we say Allahu Akbar. So at the end of Surah Ad-Duha, we say Allahu Akbar. Right? So I will then recite the surah, we'll say Allahu Akbar, and then I'll do the translation of it, and then we'll do the tafsir and go from there. But it's just a common habit when the khatam is done, based upon what's been given to us by Anas ibn Malik and others, and Imam Ahmed down to the third age, is that we make the takbir because we're getting close to the end of the Mus'haf, inshallah. So, we go back to the statement of the Imam. He says, quote, Surah Ad-Duha is a Meccan surah by consensus. Allah the Exalted, He says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wad-duha wal-layli idha saja. Ma wadda'aka rabbuka wa ma qala. Wal-akhiratu khayrun laka min al-ula. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. Allahu Akbar. In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate. By the early morn, and by the night when it moves out, your Lord has not hated you, nor is He despised. And The hereafter is better for you than this earthly life. Your Lord will surely give you that which is good and that which you shall be pleased with. Did he not find you an orphan and give you shelter? Did he not find you wandering and give you guidance? Did he not find you in penury and he gave you wealth and sufficed you? As far as the orphan, do not dominate over that one. And as far as the one that asks for help, do not push him away. And of the favor of your Lord, speak and proclaim. Surah Ad-Duha, the 93rd Surah, Ayat 1 to 11. The scholars of commentary have all agreed that this surah was sent after an interruption in the revelation. However, all the scholars of commentary have a difference in the cause of the interruption of revelation. The first statement they make is that the Jews asked the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about Dhul Qarnayn, the companions of the cave and the soul. He said, I will inform you of this tomorrow. But he did not say, Insha'Allah. So on account of this, there was a brief interruption in revelation. The second point or statement that they give is that it was revealed due to the fact that some of his companions were not being diligent in purifying themselves. Now, we've mentioned some of this in Surah Maryam, the 19th Surah, Ayah 65. And then we also have the third statement that it was on account of a puppy that was in his house that was soiling the area, as said by Zayd ibn Aslam. Now, as for the period of time that the revelation was interrupted, this has been mentioned already in our commentary on Surah Maryam, the 19th Surah, 66. But we would like to mention a statement that was narrated by Imams Al-Bukhari and Muslim in their collections from the hadith of Jundub, who said, a woman from the Quraysh one day said to the Prophet ﷺ, I don't see your demon. He must have abandoned you. Referring to the angel Jibreel alayhi salam. But Allah sent down right after that, Ad-Duha. Now, Jundub, he was the son of Sufyan, while the woman that said this was Jamil, the wife of Abu Lahab. Ad-Duha refers to the brightness of the day, as said by Mujahid, the domain of the day, the wholeness of it, said by Qatada, the first of its hour until the sun reaches its zenith. That is called Duha, said by As-Sudai and Muqatil. But also it can refer to all of the day, as said by Al-Farra. Now, Saja, Wal-Duha, Wal-Layli Idha Saja, Saja, by the night when it spreads its darkness. By the night when it goes forward. By the night when it encroaches. By the night when it brings its stillness and comes forward. By the night when its darkness is established. And by the night when its shadows extend forward. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas, Sa'id ibn Jubair, Ata, Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl ibn Zayd, as well as Al-Farra, and also Abu Ubaidah and Al-Hadi, along with Ibn Qutaybah. Ibn al-A'rabi has also said the same. Your Lord has not abandoned you. So he has not abandoned you as others may have abandoned you, nor does he despise you. The hereafter is better for you than this earthly life. So what's better for you is in the hereafter rather than the earthly life. That which is for you in the hereafter is more grand than what you were given of the nobility of this earthly life. Your Lord shall certainly give you of the good in the hereafter, and you will be pleased with that which you have been given. Ali ibn Abi Talib and Al-Hasan ibn Ali both say, you will be pleased with it. It refers to the intercession that he shall be making for his ummah until he is satisfied. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, it shall be shown what he's pleased with is his ummah's overcoming kufr and the things of kufr. And this will make him smile when he sees that. So the hereafter is better for you than the earthly life, and your Lord shall give you that which is pleasing to you. Did we not find you an orphan and give you shelter? Meaning you were given shelter at the time when you had been turned over to your uncle Abu Talib, and he raised you in his own house, and you were given sufficient shelter and also enriched under the custodianship of Abu Talib, Abu Talib, as said by Ibn As-Sa'ib. And were you not found wandering and then given guidance? Meaning, you were wandering and not yet given the judgments and rulings of the revealed law. Then he gave it to you and guided you to tell the others and tell the people. This is the commentary of the vast majority, as said by Al-Hasan al-Basri and Al-Dhahak. And that he was wandering when he was a small baby in the bushes of Mecca. But then Allah returned him to his grandfather when he was off wandering lost one day. This was said by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. Also, it refers to when he left with Maysara, the servant of Khadijah. Iblis had taken a hold of the reins of his camel, and he had been diverted from the path. But the angel Jibreel alayhi salam came, and Iblis was turned away. And instead of being thrown off on the path, he came across a group of Abyssinians who guided him back to his caravan. So it is as if Allah is saying that he gave all of this to you. This was also mentioned by Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib radiallahu anhu. So he found you as well among a people who were astray, and he guided you to give them the message of Tawheed and prophethood, as said by Ibn As-Sa'ib. He found you off on your own, and he guided you to the remembrance of Allah and what to tell them. Just as when he says, أَن تَضِلَّ إِحْدَاهُمَا فَتُذَكِّرُ إِحْدَاهُمَا الْأُخْرَى. So if any one of you should forget something, then the other from among them shall remind him. Surah Al-Baqarah, the second surah, ayah 282. So whatever dhikr he might have forgotten, Allah reminded him by giving him the revelation and other things, as said by Al-Tha'lab. Allah says, that did he not find you wandering and not knowing what was to be done? And then he caused you to be guided so that the people might know through you what is to be done, and until they knew you. As said by Abdul-Aziz ibn Yahya and Muhammad ibn Ali at-Tirmidhi. Did he not find you in a state of penury, extreme poverty, and enrich you? So by enriching you, he gave you sustenance. As said by Ibn Sa'ib and Al-Farra. And he gave you what was required of the wealth. And Allah gave him what was pleasing to him. He sustained you with the wealth of Khadija when you left from Abu Talib, as said by a group of scholars of commentary. As for the orphan, do not humiliate or dominate over him, meaning by taking his wealth or other matters, as said by Mujahid. As the judges said, the same thing. As far as the one who asks, meaning the one who asks for righteousness or assistance, as said by the vast majority. When someone comes to you asking that you give him something, or that you give him some charity, then don't turn him away, don't push him away, and don't tell him words that might push him away. If someone's seeking knowledge, don't push him away. This was said by Yahya ibn Adam and others. And of the favor of your Lord, proclaim. So the favor of your Lord refers to prophethood. The Quran, both of these statements said by Mujahid. And also of all other good things. And this is the statement of Muqatil. And it was narrated from Mujahid, who said, I recited this to Ibn Abbas, and when he reached the part, Wad-Duha, he said, say Allahu Akbar, because every surah we complete from here on, we say Allahu Akbar at the end of it, until the end of the Mus'haf. I recited to Ubay ibn Ka'ab, and he commanded me to do the exact same thing. Ali ibn Ahmad an-Naysaburi said, it's said because this is mentioned that the origin of this is that the revelation, when it was interrupted from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the idol worshipper said, your demon, his demon has abandoned him and despised him. And look at his state. But when Allah sent down Surah Ad-Duha, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Allahu Akbar, out of pleasure with the revelation of Allah. And because of that, the people took this on as a sunnah in a manner. Close quote. So I say, أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم أستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم الحمد الراحمين. Is there a question over any of what we've covered so far today? Yes.
Everyone you spoke about Salat Duha, the morning prayer, the optional morning prayer, and you gave the timing up till the zenith point. So, what my understanding is that you have to be awake from Fajr up to the completion of Salatul Duha. Is that correct? Or is it possible that you can pray Fajr and then go to sleep and then make the intention to pray Salatul Duha when you wake up? Is that possible and still get the reward of Hajj and Umrah?
So the question is regarding whether one has to stay up for the entire portion from Fajr up until sunrise where Duha appears. Does someone have to do that in order to get the full reward of Duha? Or may one rest and then wake up and pray Duha? Alhamdulillah. Because there are different narrations of this text, some people make a distinction. Some would say if it's Ishraq, no. You can't do this if it's Ishraq. No, the 2 rakahs after, no. But another body of scholars say there's no distinction between this because the Prophet ﷺ, he prayed Salatul Duha on the way to the conquest of Mecca. And this happened almost at the zenith. It was touching the zenith time. So we see that we've not been given a definite deadline for praying it other than it's within this time. So we've not been given a deadline for its reward. Its reward hasn't been stipulated that, okay, if someone, the second body of scholars says that its reward hasn't been stipulated, right? Whereas one body of scholars will say, yes, it has, because the Ishraq portion, those 2 rakahs of it, it was said that if someone does this to this, that they have this. That means it's conditioned upon that thing, right? Because the condition's been set. If someone does this and this, then they get that. That's a condition, right? That's Ishraq. So that's why you'll find some people, they'll stay up until what they call Ishraq, which is where the sun's burned off, its redness is yellow. Pray Ishraq, go to sleep, right? Because they follow that first position. Right? Is there another question? No? Another question? No? Another question? No? Okay. If there's no further questions, inshallah, we'll close from here, and when we next come back, inshallah, we'll be starting Alam Nashrah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك انه غفور رحيم يرحم الراحمين ولا اله الا الله والسلام عليكم.